Is there another big change coming to the Bloodline? A recent report suggests there may be. Because we know, since WrestleMania 40, there have been a lot of changes to the Bloodline. There's been no Roman Reigns after he lost the undisputed title to Cody Rhodes. And then we kind of saw the new version of the Bloodline take SmackDown by storm, led by Solo Sikoa. We've seen the introductions of Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa. Seems to be, most likely, new introductions more coming with the potential debut of Talla Tonga, which we've talked about in a previous video, could be related to the former Hikuleo in New Japan, whose contract is up, seems to be headed towards WWE. And we know that Jacob Fatu is still out there. We've talked about him for months now. There have been reports about maybe holding off his debut. We still don't know when that's going to happen. But there is an interesting report, as I said, that suggests that someone new is coming to the Bloodline, and that could mean the exit for Solo Sikoa from this group. But don't get worried just yet, or happy if you're not a Solo fan. It could just mean the exit of the Solo Sikoa name, because according to a report from Fightful, WWE recently trademarked the name Caesar Sikoa. And if you put two and two together, you would have to think that is probably going to apply to the current Solo Sikoa for a potential name change. I've seen some people talk about, could this be what Jacob Fatu is called whenever he comes into the group? I would think that's more unlikely than making this change for Solo, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if this is something that WWE is deciding to do, and now is the time they're doing it, why? Well, there's a lot of things that you can tie in with this whole history of the Bloodline and the future points that are still to come, which we've talked about many times. Feels like something that includes the return of Roman Reigns, potential reunion with the Usos, possibly Sami Zayn. We did a video on that yesterday. Could Sami be tied back in? Then you get your original Bloodline versus the new version of the Bloodline. That seems to be a destination that we're going to get to at some point in the future, whether that's just a simple build to a War Games match or all the possible one-on-one combinations you can do from there. But there is something else that is important about this name, because it does involve the word Caesar. You come for the wrestling, you stay for the history lessons, because we are going to turn to Wikipedia. And yes, I can't believe I'm actually doing this on a wrestling video, but that is what we have to do here, because when we go to Wikipedia and understand why the word Caesar is important here and why the name Caesar Sikoa could be important, I think it's very clear. So, I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm not going to read Wikipedia for the next 5 minutes, but I am going to give you a couple important points from this when you talk about the meaning of the word Caesar. So as you can see, what does it mean, right? It is a title of an imperial character, which, boy, that really plays into the Bloodline, the power, the greed, the thriving to sit on the throne. Like, that is kind of what we're doing here. Who's going to be the king? Like, this is Game of Thrones-esque. All the power struggles. And certainly, you could go all the way back to the Roman Empire and feel like you probably had these same power struggles back then. We know the story of Julius Caesar. We know all of this, right? And so, let's keep going a little bit further, though. Because as we look at it here, when used on its own, the title denotes the heir apparent. And so, why is that important again? Because we've seen Solo start to sort of step into that heir apparent role. He's the one who has taken the throne because Roman Reigns is not there, and he's in charge. We've heard that many times now. Until Roman gets back, it is Solo who's in charge, and that is how this is all being played up. Now, if we take this a little step further, we're going to keep going to Wikipedia for another entry here. So, what's interesting about this story and why I think this could be the one that's most fascinating if they decide to go with this Caesar Sikoa character, which I know you're visually thinking, wait a second, are they really going to change Solo's name in the middle of all this? This could just be the ultimate sort of, we're going to change it because that's just how obnoxious that this group is now behind the current leader, which to me, I still think the leader of this whole thing and the person pulling the strings with the entire new Bloodline is The Rock. And if that is the case, this would make sense for this reason. It tells the story here. Again, come for the wrestling, stay for the history lessons. It tells the story of Tiberius, who was the adopted son and successor of Augustus, right? And it talks about here that upon his own ascension to the throne, he was named Tiberius Caesar Augustus. Stay with me here. The precedent was thus then set. The emperor, styled as Augustus, designated his successor by adopting him and giving him the name Caesar. So, just let's play hypothetical here for a second, all right? We're done reading Wikipedia. Let's say hypothetical for just 1 second. Let's say that The Rock, who has now deemed himself as sort of the emperor of the bloodline, right? Like he's the guy at the very top of the food chain. Let's say that he's decided that, you know what, I see Solo as sort of my adopted son, right? And so he's going to title him as Caesar Sikoa. Like that is something that the final boss, The Rock, that's what he would do. He would go that far with the power, with the family tree, all of this. He is someone who would do that. Like we know that now. With what we saw from The Rock's character over the past, 4 months, we know that's something he would do. So I think that's what is very interesting about this, because I really do believe that unless they just surprise us, and Jacob Fatu is Caesar Sikoa, which I just don't know if is the best move unless they pull it off, but I think the most likely scenario is that you're getting Solo Sikoa transforming to Caesar because they want to tie into the family dynamic. And again, they're going to tie into the Roman Empire history. Like this is all made for that, right? Like this is the Roman Empire. The bloodline is the Roman Empire. Like that is how they've always played it up when you think about it. And it makes sense. Roman Reigns was the person who was leading the way. Now it is Solo Sikoa, who is the heir apparent. Like they have pushed him that way. He is the person in charge. We don't know when Roman's coming back. That's the story that they're telling. So it is Solo's world now. He is the one with all the power. But really, I think it's The Rock as the one with all the power. And if it is The Rock with the power, then to me, it makes the most sense that The Rock would be as obnoxious and sort of confident as ever to officially deem Solo Sikoa as Caesar, because he sees him as worthy of ascending to the throne, right? And so, and remember, if you guys want to go back, I will put the video right here on the screen for you at the end of this one. You will see the video I did, I don't know, a couple months ago now, talking about it was becoming very clear that Solo Sikoa and The Rock were more connected than ever. The closer we got to WrestleMania 40, it was very clear that Solo was moving more towards The Rock physically, literally, as they're standing in the ring. Solo is physically more towards the side of The Rock than he was the original bloodline with Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, and Paul Heyman at that point. And so, if that is the case, could we see The Rock taking this to a new level, deeming Solo as Caesar? And that is how we get to the big match between Roman Reigns and Caesar Sikoa. Roman versus Caesar. The WWE has always loved its ancient history, right? Could we see that? Could that be the tagline? You have no doubt that WWE, as we said before, when you have the tribal chief versus the final boss, all of this other stuff, right? The head of the table, final boss. Like there's so many things that WWE loves with the taglines. They love all these different things. And so these are the kind of matches they're building up. And I feel like this one would make a lot of sense from the way they've told the story. If it's The Rock that's in control, Solo is the one, is kind of the right-hand man, and Solo is the heir apparent. For whenever The Rock decides to step down from the throne, whenever he decides that he doesn't want to be at the head of the table anymore, it's going to be Solo, because he's already put him in charge. The group has reinvigorated itself with the new members and all of that. So I'm curious if this is the direction they go in. Like I said, this 10 minutes could be for nothing, because it could be as simple as, hey, Caesar Sikoa is going to be Jacob Fatu. It's going to be someone else that we're not even thinking of. Maybe that's aside what they do. But if you look at the historical elements of it and what Caesar actually means, this is pretty fascinating if they're deciding to go this route, because they are really playing into the ancient history here of the Roman Empire and really trying to go as far as they can to push this big power struggle within this family. And if that is the case, hey, I'm compelled. I'm hooked. I want to see where this goes, because it's going to seem probably silly to some people when all of a sudden we start referring to Solo as Caesar. But if you see the way they're playing it up, I can understand why that may be something that they want to do now, because that will, again, tie into the story. Caesar / Solo, potentially, is going to go after Cody Rhodes to get that championship back. Remember, that's how this all started after WrestleMania 40. Solo wanted to go into the locker room. He's in our locker room. Cody, the new champion, is in our locker room. And Heyman's like, you can't go in there. We have to get that title back. So now we are one step closer to that. If it is going to be Solo challenging Cody Rhodes for the championship at SummerSlam, then we are one step closer. And if that happens, I don't think Solo's going to beat Cody, because I think that is a possible destination for Roman Reigns returning. And how that all plays out is going to be a very wild scene. But I do think we're heading towards another big development within this bloodline. And it seems like a possible name change could be the first step towards that big moment, which does seem to likely come at SummerSlam, if we are getting the Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa or Caesar Sikoa match. So you guys let me know what you think. Do you think this is as simple as WWE is taking this name that they have now trademarked and applying it to Solo Sikoa moving forward? Do you think it ties into the history that we just talked about with what the name Caesar actually means and how it ties into the power dynamic within the bloodline? I'd love to know what you think. Always enjoy the discussion. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button on your way out. As I said, there's a lot of videos you can go back and watch. We talked about The Rock and Solo's relationship. We talked about some of the other stuff that's going on within this bloodline story. Check out all the videos. You can find the full playlist on the Bloodline saga. Check out everything we talked about here. And again, let me know what you think about this new name, Caesar Sikoa.